Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Week 5 Monday Morning Breakfast Bite. Now, this week, we're getting further into the general requirements of a contract. Remember, last week we talked about there's 4 general requirements. There's the agreement, there's consideration, there's capacity, and legality. Last week we talked about the agreement and the consideration, and this week we're talking about the legality and the capacity and consent. Because when we talk about legality and we talk about capacity and consent, we're talking about specific things. Legality means that you have to look at what the subject matter of the contract is discussing. So if it's for putting a roof on your house, the subject matter of the contract is putting a roof on your house. If it's for dealing drugs, if it's for putting a hit on someone, if it's for constructing a house in a zone that's listed commercial, or trying to construct a commercial building in an area that's zoned strictly for residential, those are illegal subject matter contracts. So in other words, you're doing something that would violate the law based on the subject matter of the contract, which is the purpose of the contract. So when we talk about legality, we're looking at what's the purpose of the contract, meaning what's that subject matter, what is it we're trying to accomplish with that contract, and is it legal what we're trying to do? Because if you're trying to construct a building in a residential area that is zoned strictly residential, you would have to get a variance in order to do that. So you don't want to enter into a contract that's going to bind you to creating or building this commercial building that you know you can't build in that particular area. Even that would be considered an illegal contractual term based on the zoning ordinances of that particular area. So, the commission of a crime, professional license requirements, a contractor, somebody that comes in and says they're a general contractor when they're not, that means that they don't have the ability to enter into that subject matter. Usurious loans. Usurious loans are loans that have extremely high interest rates, and those are against public policy as well as being against the law, and therefore the legality of that contract would be it is for an illegal purpose and therefore would not be enforceable. So pay attention to those things under the requirements of legality, restraints of trade, which we look at monopolies, non-competitive agreements, things of that nature. Just pay attention to those items. Take a look also, click into these particular videos and take a look at what those are about regarding different areas such as punitive damages, exculpatory clauses, and things of that nature. Capacity is another very important area of contract law, and that has to do with an individual's mental capacity to enter into the contract. We don't allow minors to enter into contracts in general because we do not feel as a society that most minors have the mental capacity to really understand the terms and the meaning behind their signature binding them to that contract. So we require that anyone who enters into a contract, for the most part, has to be over the age of 18 in order to have the proper capacity to enter into that contract. Also, an intoxicated person. Not the best argument ever for trying to avoid a contract, but if you are involuntarily intoxicated, or maybe you're taking a medication that's having a reaction on you that you generally, have not had in the past, and it's making you unable to properly assess a situation, then that might be a defense to what otherwise looks like an enforceable contract. And I want you to understand too, when we look at capacity, we're talking about looking at the contract below the surface. So when you look at the contract on its face, it looks like it's a valid enforceable contract because the signatures are there, the contract terms look enforceable, there's nothing illegal about the subject matter or anyone involved with the contract. But then you dig further and you say, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is a voidable contract because The person wasn't 18 at the time that they entered into it. The person was intoxicated for this reason, again, not the best defense, or the person is mentally incompetent because maybe they're elderly and they may have dementia or Alzheimer's, or they just don't have the ability to really understand, because of their age, the terms and the consequences of what they're entering into. A mentally incapacitated person also could be someone who is mentally impaired at the time for whatever reason, or is insane. So you want to pay attention to those things when you're looking at the terms. Restitution is a very important term. I want you to pay attention to that. Reality of assent, what that means when you assent to something, what that means, and the defenses to it, which we fall under mistake, misrepresentation, undue influence, duress, and so on. Fraud, very important. Take a look at that information and understand that, and understand when a mistake can be used as a defense. Unilateral mistakes? No. That's generally not going to be used as a defense to what is otherwise a valid and enforceable contract. Bilateral mistakes, yes. So, and also statute of frauds, which is a very, very important aspect of the law, because there are certain contracts that absolutely positively have to be in writing. They're specified here in the PowerPoint on slide 9. And those contracts, in particular, any contract for the purchase or sale of real estate must be in writing. Any contract that can't be completed within 1 year must be in writing, and so on and so forth. So take a look at that information as well. Take a look at the specifics of e-contracts, because e-contracts are everywhere around us now. So it's important to be aware of those and understand the legalities of that from a business perspective as well as from your own personal perspective. This week you have for homework your Module 5 discussion, Quiz 5, the Cengage Media Quiz. It was assigned to you by your instructor, and the case analysis, which is now we're getting down to the rationale. And the rationale section is the longest part of the case brief, so be aware of that. Understand that you're not going to be able to complete that section of the case brief in less than 500 words. It's likely it's going to take you at least 500 words to complete that section, because it's where you're going to discuss your understanding of how the court reached its decision. You're not going to cut and paste from the opinion of the case, but you're going to explain your understanding of how the court reached its decision, talking about the facts and how the court applied the facts to the law or the law to the facts. Okay, if you have any questions, again, as always, don't hesitate to contact your instructor, and have an awesome week 5.